Ghost types. Along with the oft-overlooked Ice type, they are tied for the rarest Pokemon type, with only 35 members among their ranks. But some, including me, will see this rarity as a positive aspect, as the lack of oversaturation, I'm looking at you Water types, has given us some of the most unique and well-designed Pokemon the series has ever seen. I'm going to start this video off by clarifying that this is not a top 10 best Ghost Pokemon to use competitively video. This is just a personal rundown of the 10 Pokemon that encapsulate all the qualities that make a great Ghost. I'm also going to limit it to one Pokemon per evolutionary line, and refrain from using any legendaries. I know there are only 2 in Hoopa and Giratina, but they've had enough time in the spotlight. They both have their own movies, for Christ's sake. So let's give these other ghoulies a fair shake. So, without further ado, let's strike while the iron is hot, and by that I mean while the month is still October, and let's start the list. In recent years, with the advent of the Eviolite held item, Dusclops has seen a resurgence in popularity, as both its already sizable defense stats get a 1.5 times boost from the held item. But personally, I've always preferred his older brother, Dusknoir, if ever asked my opinion. Dusknoir is known as the Gripper Pokemon, and in the Pokemon world, he can be seen as an equivalent to the Grim Reaper of our world's folklore. His Pokedex entry reads, "The antenna on its head captures radio waves from the world of spirits that command it to take people there." If that's not convincing enough, just look at its design. A single unblinking eye floats eerily in a dark, empty husk of a skull. 2 faces decorate its torso, a menacing one on the front and one mirroring the expression of someone in a catatonic state on the back. The band encircling his torso can be open, acting as a mouth for both of the faces, which it uses to capture the spirits of people and Pokemon alike and do with them whatever it so chooses. Dang. If that's not enough to convince you as to why Dusknoir belongs on this list with the Pokemon world's spectral elite, I don't know what will. The 6th generation of Pokemon brought some absolutely stellar Pokemon to the table. It introduced the least amount of new Pokemon of any generation before it, but it really showed that the designers took their time creating the new Pokémon monsters and truly valued quality over quantity. Gourgeist is no exception to this. It has both creepy and cute factors working in its favor. The creepy is reflected in its Pokedex entry. It enwraps its prey in its hair-like arms. It sings joyfully as it observes the suffering of its prey. And the cute in its artwork, with a happy, smiling face hidden under aforementioned hair-like arms. Gourgeist also brought a new level of strategy to the table and competitive viability with the introduction of its different sizes mechanic. Gourgeist's size ranges from small to super size, and each form has stats reflective of this, with the small having the lowest HP and highest speed, and the inverse being true for the super size. Plus, Gourgeist is a friggin' jack-o'-lantern. Can you get any more Halloweeny than that? I don't think so. But coming in a close second in the Halloweeniness race is... Trevenant. Holy moly frijoles, this thing is cool. Trevenant's design is taken from the Treant monster of Dungeons & Dragons fame, and from the Kodama of Japanese folklore, a spirit of a tree that sometimes inhabits the body of their older brethren. Not to mention the all-too-cool trope from fantasy and horror fiction, the living forest. I think my affinity for this particular trope is why I was instantly drawn to the Trevenant evolutionary line, and is why I just had to have one in my party in my first playthrough of Pokemon Y. And surprisingly, Trevenant's Pokedex entry is one of the least creepy when compared to the others on this list. It can control trees at will. It will trap people who harm the forest, so they can never leave. Granted, being one of those people would not be ideal, but that's what you get for harming the environment, you bunch of dicks. Captain Planet, he's our hero. Besides being a bona fide member of Greenpeace, Trevenant can wreak absolute havoc in the metagame, acting as a fantastic wall with access to recovery moves such as Horn Leech and Leech Seed, its fantastic ability Harvest that has a 50% chance to regenerate a used berry at the end of each turn, and its ability to cripple physical attackers with a burn by using the dreaded Will-O-Wisp. Treebeard would be proud. Next up on the list is the Megazord-looking Pokemon Golurk. Golurk's design stems from the golems of Jewish folklore, particularly the Golem of Prague, mystical beings created by rabbis to protect people of the Jewish faith from all the unpleasantries that come with being surrounded by anti-Semitism. This origin is shown in its Pokédex entry, which states, "It is said that Golurk were ordered to protect people and Pokemon by the ancient people who made them." I'm sensing a theme here. It seems that some ghost types are not the monsters they are made out to be, but rather defenders of justice. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Golurk can friggin' fly. By inserting its hands, feet, and legs into its body, Golurk can blast off like a rocket.
Go, go, Power Rangers! Go.
And if that's not cool enough, Golurk's shiny form further embraces the giant robot aesthetic by implementing a gray color scheme. This is one Pokemon you don't want sicked on you. Enough of the namby-pamby, justice-seeking Pokemon. This is where things start to get creepy. A doll that became a Pokemon over its grudge from being junked. It seeks the child who disowned it. If you haven't guessed already, I'm of course referring to Banette. I've always been terrified by possessed dolls. I think it comes from my exposure to Goosebumps as a young child. One of the stories involves a possessed ventriloquist dummy by the name of Slappy, who is hell-bent on making any children in possession of him his slave for all eternity. And let's not be forgetting the Child's Play series of movies, where a doll by the name of Chucky is possessed by the spirit of a serial killer. So you can safely say that this one resonated with me. With its creepy, zippered smile and dead-eyed stare, Banette oh so easily clinches the number 6 spot on the list. And when the 6th generation brought Banette's mega form to the table, with zippers on its hands, and abdomen exposing a terrifying glimpse at the spirit possessing the poor discarded plaything, let's just say I was washing my sheets a lot more than once a week. Keeping with the suddenly animate, inanimate object theme, number 5 spot belongs to Chandelure. Chandelure is based on the Japanese spirit, the Hirodama, a blue fire related to ghosts, a Japanese equivalent of the West's will-o'-the-wisp, and a chandelier. Its Pokédex entry eerily states, being consumed in Chandelure's flame burns up the spirit, leaving the body behind. Yikes. Listen, fire sucks enough as it is. I've been burnt enough times making delicious chicken nuggets in the oven to know that. But for your spirit to be consumed by this Pokemon's ethereal hellfire, leaving only an empty shell behind, that would suck. Throw in some hypnotic powers, a pupilless stare, and a mouth that appears almost sewn shut, and you've got a Pokemon that makes me completely abandon the whole "I wish Pokemon were real" fantasy. That's why these inanimate object Pokemon are consistently ranking so high on the list. It comes from the fear of the unknown. If someone were to tell me that there is a distinct possibility that anytime I encounter an ornate light fixture or forgotten toy from my youth, that said object would subject me to a fate worse than death, I would have to be institutionalized due to me developing a very rational fear of common household objects. No! Keep that shake weight away from me! It wants my soul! No! Can you guess who's next on the list from the pattern developing? No? Well, I'll give you a hint. He's the most OP piece of crap and I hate him and he takes no skill to use and everyone uses him, stupid King Shield buttface. It's Aegislash. I will admit, he's a really cool Pokemon, but his abundance of usage in the metagame has kind of soured me on the whole Aegislash hype train thing. I admit it, I'm a Pokemon hipster, I hate everything everyone else loves. Conversations I have had with my psychiatrist aside, Aegislash is not so much evil as he is just badass. His Pokédex entry reads, generations of kings were attended by these Pokemon, which used their spectral power to manipulate and control people and Pokemon. Not to mention, its design is sheer genius. 10 years ago, if you were to tell me that they were going to make one of the most loved Pokemon in recent memory out of nothing but a sword, a shield, and 2 ribbons, I would have referred you to the aforementioned psychiatrist immediately. But, like they do more often than not, Game Freak made it work. Although the Steel type lost its resistances to Dark and Ghost in the 6th generation, to help balance the game a little more with the introduction of the Fairy type, I suspect the real culprits in the change to be the Aegislash evolutionary family. Even though Steel type was rightfully nerfed in 6th gen, Aegislash and its pre-evolution still boast an impressive 9 resistances and 3 immunities, which is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. Aegislash, I hate you, and you should go die again, but I have to give credit where credit is due. I remember the first time I heard that a lot of my favorite Pokemon from past generations would be getting new evolutions in Generation 4, I was over the moon. Kirlia got Gallade, the physical counterpart to Gardevoir. Eevee got 2 new evolutions in the form of Glaceon and Leafeon, and Snorunt got Frostlass. This was a Pokemon to get excited about. Glalie was definitely a lackluster addition to the struggling Ice type. There were few enough of them as it was, and most also belonged to the abundant Water type. But when I was told that my little runt of the snow could become this cool, no pun intended, ghostly, kimono-wearing lady, I was stoked. Then, I read its Pokedex entry. It freezes prey by blowing negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit breath. It is said to secretly display its prey. Frostlass, you're f***ed. Frostlass is based on yet another piece of Japanese mythology known as the Yuki Onna. The story tells of a young man and his father who are forced to take refuge in a cabin in the Japanese mountains due to a harsh winter storm. When they fall asleep, they are visited by a Yuki Onna, who then kills the father but spares the young man because he is young and beautiful, but warns that she will kill him if he ever speaks of the incident. Years later, the man marries a beautiful woman and fathers a family of his own with her, but she mysteriously never ages. One night, he tells his wife of his encounter with the Yuki Onna, where she then reveals that she was the Yuki Onna all along. She then says she won't kill him for going back on his promise for their children's sake, and then proceeds to melt away and is never seen or heard from again. Now that's what I call bone chilling. The Ghost type is incredibly unique, in that its pairing with other types almost instantly brings a level of creativity unmatched by any of the other types. The Dark Ghost type is an excellent example of this. No, I'm not talking about Sableye, I'm referring to Spiritomb. It was formed by uniting 108 spirits. It has been bound to an odd keystone to keep it from doing any mischief. The fact that Spiritomb is an amalgamation of 108 damned spirits and bound to a rock for all eternity due to the misdeeds is cool enough, but how about the fact that prior to Generation 6, its type combination gave it a grand total of 0 weaknesses? Since Game Freak is in the mood for designing grossly overpowered Pokemon, how about we get a Mega Spiritomb with the ability Wonder Guard, an ability that prevents any attack that is not super effective from landing? I've always thought this Pokemon stood out, from its spooky cry to its impossible weight. 238.1 pounds? Looks like Spiritomb has got a lot of junk in the odd keystone trunk. Spiritomb, although you're more than deserving of the number 2 spot, your species name of the forbidden Pokemon is all too appropriate, as you are forbidden from being named number 1 due to the existence of... Haunter. I know, I can hear the comments already. Gengar's better, this is stupid, you're stupid. Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man. I've always thought Haunter's design was superior to Gengar's in every way. The gaping mouth with jagged jack-o'-lantern teeth, the floating disembodied hands that reach out forever, and just listen to these Pokedex entries. It likes to lurk in the dark and tap shoulders with a gaseous hand. Its touch causes endless shuddering. In total darkness, where nothing is visible, Haunter lurks, silently stalking its next victim. Its tongue is made of gas. If licked, its victim starts shaking constantly until death eventually comes. What? Haunter is like a puppy that kills you. Don't get me wrong, I love Gengar, but in my mind, Haunter is the OG, original ghost. Just look at how Game Freak made Gengar's Mega Evolution slim down, harkening back to the days when Gengar was actually spooky, and not just some fairy shadow, as everyone likes to claim. Haunter, you encompass everything spooky and scary in the Pokemon universe, which is why you are my number 1 ghost Pokemon. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, why not hit that like button, or click on one of these other links on your screen. They'll take you to some other Halloween themed videos I've done. If you really want to help the channel, why not subscribe or leave a comment. Thanks again, I'll see you next time. Stay spooky!